I had attempted to give you the background of the course, wherein I introduced the first three units, and then I suggested that the later part of the course is so structured as to give you an idea about some of the public administration theories and how actually public administration functions in India. So therein, we would try to look at some of the administrative structures in India and their functions. And we would be selective in our approach in a sense that this course has to be administered in a very limited period of time, number one, and number two, considering your requirement, we thought that this would be good if we focus on a few issues and topics rather than making. Yeah, tell me.
Please take your waiting room.
There a person is waiting. No problem. I have allowed everyone in who was waiting, right? Okay, okay, okay. Now no one is in the waiting room, huh? Okay, right. Okay, right. Thanks. Okay, so considering the time constraint and considering the requirement, we try to focus on a few areas wherein we would give you some knowledge about the administrative theories and the way administration functions in India, right? So what I would do, I would uh, start our discussions on the meaning of public policy. So this is what I intend doing, uh, and I have planned that first I'll give you little background that how the discipline of public policy was claimed to have some relevance and importance in the larger field of political science. But of course, later on, has started acquiring an identity of its own, right? But initially, people who contributed in the discipline or people who conceived that there could be a distinct field of study named public policy, they were largely drawn from the field of political science, and the name of Harold de Lasswell is very much important in this respect. So he stands as a person who, in 1951, along with Daniel Lerner, right? Daniel. I'll go back and I will, start once more, right? The point I was trying to make that, the idea or objective is to understand meaning of public policy, right? But before that, it would be good if we have something in the background to understand that why at certain stage in the evolution of political science as a discipline, a group of scholars or academicians, they thought that there has to have a dedicated discipline to study the actions of government, right? So please uh, pay attention to the term actions of the government, right? So what actually would happen, the way political science as a discipline has evolved over the period of time, initially it would be concerned with the theoretical aspects, then focus would be to understand uh, the structures, the institutions, the processes, right? But there would not be a dedicated discipline which would try to understand, explain, and study the actions of government per se. So, what actions the government was taking or would be taking, right? What was the purpose and idea behind a particular action of the government? What would be the larger objectives that the government would achieve? Will it be different from, or will it be slightly away from the intended objectives of the government? What the government originally intended and actual outcomes, what would be the difference? So, that is where Lasswell and his colleagues, they emphasized that the emphasis should be to understand not on the issues that what had happened in the past or what ought to happen, right? Rather than the attention should be paid of what actually is happening, right? So that is where, if you recall, that is where, if you recall, I had mentioned in the beginning that you can correlate the happenings around you when you are studying the discipline, when you look at a particular action of the government. Okay, so with those things in the background, Lasswell, he outlined that as far as the discipline of public policy is concerned, right, first it would constitute a science, meaning that Lasswell would emphasize on the scientific character of the discipline. That is one. Now, this science would be oriented to study the present rather than the past, and rather than providing only norms and values to the government that the government would be expected to achieve, right? So that is where we find that Lasswell pointed out that there should be three distinct features when we are trying to understand the subject public policy. These three distinct features would be: first, that the discipline of public policy should be multidisciplinary in character. So it should be multidisciplinary, meaning that this discipline would draw upon various other subjects like law, like sociology, like behavioral sciences, like psychology, right? So this would draw upon various other disciplines in terms of building of concepts, in terms of incorporation of terms, and in terms of adopting methodology, which may be drawn from behavioral sciences or may be in part from various other natural sciences, and even to some extent from mathematics, right? So that is where, if you see, therein I had mentioned that we would be looking at certain models, right? Certain models which some of the policy scientists, if you can use that term, they have developed over the period of time. So what one can understand, that one, that Lasswell emphasized that the new discipline of policy sciences would make use of the developments which have been achieved in other disciplines of social sciences or other sister disciplines. That is one, meaning that everything is not required to be started from scratch, right? So from political science, certain ideas, certain models can be borrowed, like systems model, for instance, right? Or maybe maybe one can borrow from the behavioral sciences, right? Psychology, from instance, right? So the behavior, or the the from sociology or related disciplines, for instance, the cultural patterns, right? So how do they matter when a government t- takes a decisions, right? So that is one, meaning that the multidisciplinary character of the discipline is the first feature which Lasswell highlighted, right? Second, Lasswell highlighted that it would be problem solving oriented. Now that is something, again, which is important for us to understand, in a sense that if you look at the evolution of political science as a discipline, so various theories, theoretical models, or the discipline of political thought, or even the field of international relations, right? So they would be looking at the structures, processes. They would describe the way things happened and the way things existed. But in Lasswell's view, no concerted or no dedicated effort would be made to solve the problems which the society actually would be facing. So that is where this discipline of policy science would focus especially on solving the problems which the society in present times would face, rather than simply explaining something in abstract or simply looking at the structures and processes.